Thank you very much, Pyra. And I know I've got one very happy analyst here in Deficio.
Never doubted him. I loved the H2K, always been all about him.
There it is.
Said they were going to get out of the group at the start of the day. This guy didn't.
Yeah, I use more energy during the game just watching than actually being on the desk, so I'm pretty exhausted.
But here's the thing, that win there makes this group very interesting. Being a 1 and 2 team starting the day, you know, to the 2 and 1 of AHQ and EDG, this really can create some interesting scenarios as we move into the latter half of the day. But let's dive straight into it. We had talked about strong laning phases for H2K. Let's identify the compositions from these two teams and how we expected them to match up through those early portions of the game.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised we saw Alistar so early for H2K, just because Vander has been playing a lot of range support. So obviously Karma got taken away as a first pick by AHQ, which I think was smart enough as a takeaway, but didn't really benefit them because Ana and Albus are not a very strong lane. And if you pick Karma and you lose lane because you're not the best like laners, Karma becomes very, very useless later on compared to like Alistar, who has so much power in a team fight.
Until you steal Baron, but that's
sure,
neither here nor there.
Yeah, and also the fact that they picked Lissandra into the Ryze Elise, and Lissandra can't bring cleanse because the biggest benefit of Lissandra is teleporting in for flank engages. And that just made them really vulnerable to the Elise Ryze ganks. And even if it didn't completely kill Westor a bunch of times, it eliminated any pressure he'd be able to have in lane, and in turn actually made it so we couldn't have effective teleports.
Yeah, exactly. I think AHQ put all their baskets into the early game. They wanted to have the push bot lane and then have Lissandra go in for cleanup kills and stuff like that. But mid lane was such a mismatch from Ryu. Ryu had that lane pushed in 24/7. There was nowhere for Westor to go.
And that's important for people to understand. You don't have to kill the guy in mid lane to win the lane. If you just keep putting some damage on his tower, you can roam first. That's way more important. And that's where we got to go back to a point we made earlier in the day, starting Westor against a team like H2K who win games in the laning phase. Westor's champion pool is unacceptable, honestly. They first banned Syndra on blue side because he doesn't play it. Guess who plays it? The substitute mid laner Chawi. Why on earth don't you bring him against a team who wins the game in the laning phase?
And you talk about winning laning phase, just some statistics for you. CSD at 20 across the board for H2K. Odoamne plus 36 in the top lane. Ryu plus 11 in the mid lane. And Forgiven plus 22 in the bot lane. That's an incredible discrepancy just from the laning phase for this team. But then we had questions about whether or not they could translate those leads into an actual late game victory. And this is where I want to jump to our replay. It's going to come 28.5 minutes into the game. 3-for-1 for H2K, definitely dominating when it came to those team fights.
This fight was a little bit of a mess. It all starts with Jankos getting caught out by Westor, and you're thinking, is this where H2K give it back? But they flanked in very well and were able to take down Westor afterwards. And this actually was supposed to be the highlight of the moment when Ryu teleports 4 members of H2K right into AHQ.
Yeah, so many small things didn't go the way of AHQ in this fight, though. You saw that little Q from Karma flying before. Could actually hit the Baron, would start hitting Forgiven in the pit. That would have been a different fight already right there. But in the end, Mountain does have his crazy escape. And the fact that he actually stays alive, even though he's not part of this Baron steal, because he's alive, Vander ignores the Karma. He's like, I only need to zone Rek'Sai no matter what, and that's why he actually disappears.
And Clement, I know you had a pretty happy reaction right after this moment. Why, to me, is Forgiven not blocking the Karma Q?
I don't know. It's AoE, and it gets the Baron. That's the point where I felt like, wow, well, AHQ doesn't have a good late game team, but maybe H2K will throw hard enough. Didn't happen.
Good point, though, with the late game team, because AHQ last time when they beat H2K, they lost the laning phase, but had a much better late game, and they used that to kind of win the game. Here, they actually didn't draft a better late game, so I think there's a lot of issues, like Lissandra gets outscaled, bot lane gets outscaled. I think there's a lot of issue for HQ's draft, and they tried to say, let's try and get a stronger early to mid game and see if we can match H2K. But why would you go down to H2K's level and play the style they wanted to play instead of just going for late game?
Now, before we continue on discussion around that game, with that Baron steal, the World's Mystery Gift bonus is fully stacked for the week with a 4 times higher chance to get an esports or legendary skin. This bonus will last through Sunday night, resetting once we head to Worlds. But now I want to dive back into this Deficio. Let's continue on this conversation around, H2K and looking as we go ahead through the day. I mean, still some things to clean up in terms of closing out the game. Cool, we can still build leads. Yeah. What else are you looking for them to be crisper with?
I mean, so much comes down to how to play mid to late game, as we've just seen. There were moments where they tried to set up like 3 lanes at once. They didn't have proper vision, because in this meta, it's very hard to have enough wards to place down, so it's hard to play this full split push game. And they tried to start Baron like 1 or 2 members a few times, and it looked a little bit lackluster, but it is very difficult to take that step further, and you just want a big team fight, which they got. So I think they showed Definitely improvements outside of some of these individual mistakes where the Baron gets lost. I just want to see them, you know, take this win and get some confidence and actually not tilt if they start falling behind in all the games.
They should have confidence because they are demolishing teams in the laning phase. And I liked the adjustment they made in this game to make sure they had tools in which to engage with their lead. The Ryze, the Alistar, the Elise, all strong picks, and I want similar archetypes from them in the future. If they're able to pick Alistar and still win lane, you definitely pick Alistar.
And Ryu, who's going to receive Player of the Game, looked fabulous on that Ryze. We have seen other players in this tournament struggle with it. Some people not entirely sure. Some teams not entirely sure how to utilize that ultimate. We saw a couple glimpses of how it could be used, even zoning at the very end to pick up an inhib, you know, knowing that no one actually has to take that portal.
Yep.
There is opportunity to use it in other ways. But finally, now I want to turn to you, Clement, and AHQ. For them moving forward, having had a somewhat disastrous early game and not putting together maybe the best composition for them, what kind of changes do you expect to see them make moving forward in the day if they're going to make a run at a second or even a first seed?
I think the biggest question is what they play mid laner. I think Westor so far has only shown 2 champions, Lissandra and Malzahar. These are not new picks. I wonder if he has something saved up. He at least needs to have a pick that can push the lane and doesn't make his jungler go down with him, because that's what happened that game, and all the lanes just couldn't win after that.
All right, focus is on the mid lane for AHQ. We're headed to a break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, H2K returns to the Rift to take on Edward Gaming.
What is it that we are not doing on stage, Mr. Wanderowicz?
Face check.
I will give you $10 if you face check.
Really?
Yes.
Ace in the hole is going to nail onto the back of the head, and this is going to be it. First blood over to Ryu. Through Mountain, over the wall, ejects. We can chase, we can chase. Chase.
I will.
I'll take it. Fight, and they party portal in, looking for on, and they cut off AHQ.
They have the damage to get it done.
Oh! He got it! Are you kidding me? Somebody blocks that counter Q. How can you let him do that? That's impossible. They got 1 kill on the board, and they keep on chasing, looking for on. Flash, Rude, he's gonna go out of it, and he's got no more spell shield. Forgiven with the pickup. H2K earned redemption.